Has anyone ever looked you straight in the eye and deemed you utterly beneath contempt, unworthy of even showing your face at a family gathering? My story, unfortunately, begins exactly there. My name is Helena Miller, and I'm a 31-year-old public school teacher. My transportation is a trusty 2016 Toyota Corolla. My home is a cozy, one-bedroom apartment in the heart of Portland, and my annual earnings hover around $55,000. To my family, these details painted a clear picture. I was the disappointment, the one whose presence would tarnish their carefully constructed image, someone best kept out of sight and out of mind, especially from new, important relatives. But here's a truth they utterly failed to grasp. In that very room, at that very moment, I was undeniably the most formidable individual present. If you're currently watching this, a warm greeting to you. Please consider subscribing and let me know in the comments where you are tuning in from and what time it is there. Because if you've ever felt your aspirations dismissed, your worth diminished by your profession, your income, or simply your lack of designer labels, then this narrative is crafted just for you. My morning commenced, as it usually did, with my alarm chiming its persistent tune at 6 o'clock, a routine largely unchanged for 7 years straight. I reluctantly disentangled myself from the modest comfort of my bed within my small, slightly askew one-bedroom apartment. I shuffled into the kitchen, the familiar chill of the morning air nipping at my bare feet, and spooned instant coffee into a ceramic mug. It was chipped, a survivor from my college days, bearing silent witness to countless early mornings. The ancient heating system grumbled and clattered within the walls, a symphony that accompanied the steady drumming of rain against the windowpane, Portland's unofficial, constant soundtrack. My laptop screen flickered to life, illuminating the carefully planned lessons for my 5 advanced placement humanities classes at Riverview High School. We were deeply immersed in a unit exploring voices that defy the status quo, dissecting pivotal civil rights speeches, examining protest poetry, and poring over essays penned by individuals whom society had initially dismissed as insignificant. The profound irony of my situation was not lost on me. Every single morning, I stood before approximately 150 teenagers, instilling in them the conviction that their lives held immense value, that their thoughts carried significant weight, and that they possessed the strength to confront anyone who sought to diminish their spirit. Then, without fail, I would journey to my parents' home for dinner, where my own father, with a few carelessly uttered sentences, would meticulously dismantle my life down to its perceived insignificance. By 6:45 a.m., I was navigating the familiar labyrinth of city streets in my humble Corolla. The engine emitted a steady, reassuring hum, and National Public Radio played softly in the background, a comforting drone of global events unfolding. The sky above remained a uniform, uninspired gray, mirroring the predictable, secure, and undeniably ordinary rhythm of my existence. For me, this quiet stability was perfectly acceptable. Yet for my father, Franklin Miller, my very ordinariness was an intolerable affront, a personal insult to his grander vision for his offspring. He would often lecture me, his voice laced with disappointment. "Helena, you were destined for something substantial, something truly impactful. Law, finance, any profession that commands true respect. You're squandering your intellect on these children who will inevitably forget your name the moment they leave your classroom." He remained perpetually oblivious to a simple truth. My students, in fact, remembered everything. They remembered my lessons, my encouragement, and the unwavering belief I had in their potential. My younger sister, Savannah, had quickly deciphered the most direct route to our father's approval, consistently targeting my life choices. She'd offer thinly veiled jabs about my practical, comfortable teacher shoes, mock my teacher salary with a dismissive wave of her hand, and ridicule my teacher apartment as if it were a temporary stopping point rather than a cherished home. Savannah intentionally cultivated an image diametrically opposed to everything I embodied. She was ostentatious, overtly ambitious, and seemed perpetually engrossed in curating her personal brand. Her life was a meticulously crafted series of angles and filters, a collection of photographs staged in front of opulent venues, where, ironically, she likely couldn't afford a meal without a special coupon or the financial backing of a current boyfriend. For years, I clung to the hopeful notion that if I simply worked harder, if I achieved more, quietly and diligently, one day they would finally acknowledge my worth. I never once anticipated that, when their recognition finally came, it would unfold beneath the dazzling brilliance of a ballroom chandelier, with a multitude of 500 witnesses observing every single detail. The telephone call that irrevocably altered the trajectory of my life arrived during my lunch break. I was hunched over a formidable stack of student essays in the bustling Riverview Teachers' Lounge. The air, thick with the perpetual scent of scorched coffee and an eclectic mix of reheated leftovers, created a rather uninspiring backdrop when my phone's screen abruptly illuminated. It was Mom. My initial instinct was to let it divert to voicemail, to postpone the inevitable conversation. Instead, with a weary sigh, I answered. "Hi, Mom," I managed, trying to inject a semblance of cheerfulness into my tone. "Helena." Her voice practically effervesced with an uncharacteristic joy, a lightness I hadn't registered in years. "Oh, good. You actually picked up. I have the most absolutely wonderful news." I paused, a slight tremor of apprehension tracing its way through me. "Okay," I said cautiously, bracing myself. "What precisely is happening?" "Savannah's engaged." She practically shrieked, the words tumbling out in a joyful torrent. "He finally proposed." I slowly and deliberately placed my red grading pen onto the stack of papers before me. "Engaged to whom?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "To Nathaniel Bington. The Bington family, Helena, the Bingtons. Think Bington Heritage Resorts, the Bington Crown Hotel, their grand estate in Chicago." She uttered each name with a reverence that transformed them into resonant, precious jewels, a clear indicator of their immense status. "They are worth hundreds of millions. It's absolutely incredible, Helena." A knot of tension tightened in my stomach, a familiar, unwelcome sensation. After we ended the call, I immediately navigated to my phone's browser and typed in a simple search, "Bington Heritage Resorts net worth." The results flashed before my eyes, 12 exquisite boutique resort hotels spanning the entire West Coast. A magnificent penthouse residence situated in downtown Chicago, prominently featured in prestigious architectural magazines. The estimated collective wealth of the family? A staggering $620 million. Accompanying these facts were glossy photographs of impeccably dressed, smiling individuals in tuxedos, posing under chandeliers that glittered like constellations. These were precisely the kind of images that sent my father into a state of blissful adoration. Then, my phone buzzed again, this time signaling an incoming video call. Savannah's flawlessly made-up face filled the screen, her long eyelashes fanned out perfectly, her lips glistening with a touch of gloss. She slowly, almost dramatically, raised her left hand, visibly savoring every fraction of the moment. "Can you even truly handle this, Helena?" she shrieked, her voice brimming with ecstatic self-importance. A dazzling 2 8-carat diamond ring blazed on her finger, greedily seizing every available fragment of light in the room, creating a miniature supernova. "Helena, this is my life now." "It's beautiful," I managed to say, and in truth, it genuinely was. The ring, despite everything, was undeniably stunning. "Nate proposed at his family's magnificent lakeside estate," she continued, barely pausing for breath. "They had delicate lanterns strung all along the dock, a live string quartet playing softly, and a personal chef preparing an exquisite meal. It was like something straight out of a Hollywood film." I cried at least 4 times. "You honestly should have been there, Helena." "Oh, wait, no, you actually couldn't have been. Wrong tax bracket, you know." I swallowed hard, the bitterness a tangible presence in my throat. "How long have you two actually been together?" I inquired, my voice flat. "Just 3 months," she declared proudly, as if it were a badge of honor. "When you know, you simply know, Helena. Besides, I'm certainly not getting any younger. And unlike some people..." Her gaze deliberately swept over my simple, unadorned top and the unpretentious cinder block walls of my apartment visible behind me. "I'm certainly not planning on growing old in a 1-bedroom rental." "I said I'm genuinely happy for you, Sav," I reiterated, consciously forcing a note of warmth into my voice, striving to make it sound authentic. The honest truth was that a small, almost imperceptible part of me genuinely was happy for her, despite the sting of her words. She tilted her head slightly, a satisfied smirk playing on her lips. Anyway, we're hosting a celebratory family dinner at Vincenzo's prime house tomorrow evening. Dad's already deep in his scheming, you know how he gets. He's practically vibrating with sheer excitement. This is his grand opportunity to finally feel truly important, to rub shoulders with the elite. She let out a short, somewhat condescending laugh. You are coming, aren't you, Helena? Yes, I affirmed, a sense of resignation settling over me. I'll be there. I ended the call and found my gaze drifting back to the stack of essays before me. One particular student's sentence seemed to leap out. Success is not what my parents envision it to be. I underlined that profound statement not once, but 3 distinct times, a silent affirmation of its truth. Vincenzo's prime house was the epitome of exclusivity. One of those establishments people would meticulously tag on Instagram merely to assert their privilege of having been granted entry. Its imposing, heavy doors guarded a realm of pristine white tablecloths, impeccably uniformed waiters in tailored vests, sophisticatedly dim lighting, and prices so exorbitant they were discreetly omitted from the menu, whispered only upon request. My father, with his characteristic flair for visibility, always insisted on reserving the most prominent table, one strategically positioned for maximum audience exposure. I spotted them instantly. He presided at the head of a lengthy table situated within the restaurant's private wing, his expensive suit serving as a kind of polished armor. Savannah sat regally to his right, her magnificent engagement ring angled just so, catching every available sliver of light to maximize its sparkle. My mother, Linda, occupied the seat directly across from them, her smile noticeably strained, a subtle mask betraying an inner discomfort. Dad did not bother to rise when I approached the table. There she is, he announced, his voice booming with a self-important theatricality. Our resident public servant, here to grace us with her presence. Savannah, with a dismissive snort, barely suppressed a laugh into her water glass. Hi, I managed, my voice flat. Congratulations again, Sav. Do you like the ring? She asked, her tone laden with an air of certainty, already fully aware of my predictable response. Nate suggests it's rather understated for a Bington family piece, but I find it utterly perfect. She paused, her eyes sparkling with an almost mischievous glee. It's nearly the equivalent of your entire car payment, isn't it? My smile, I blinked, taken aback, genuinely surprised. Excuse me, I managed. It's truly not personal, Helena, she insisted, her voice attempting an unconvincing tone of sincerity. It's simply that the Bingtons are accustomed to a particular echelon of society, a certain level of sophistication. If they inquire about your profession, what exactly are we supposed to tell them? That you're a teacher at a common public high school? I am a teacher at a public high school, I calmly responded, emphasizing the factual nature of my statement. I teach AP Humanities at Riverview. Dad exhaled a dramatic, exasperated sigh. You see, Helena, this is precisely my point. You're still not grasping the gravity of the situation. This isn't about you, Helena. This is entirely about the family's reputation. We cannot afford the risk of appearing cheap, or provincial, or, God forbid, as if we squandered one of our daughters on such a naive idealism. I carefully placed my water glass back onto the table. The resulting clink, in the suddenly tense silence, seemed disproportionately loud. So, just to be absolutely clear, I stated, my voice steady despite the rising turmoil within me, you are officially uninviting me from my own sister's engagement party. I am merely being practical, Helena, he retorted, straightening his tie, a familiar, almost ritualistic gesture he employed before delivering a pronouncement. When they inquire about our children, we will inform them that we possess one daughter who is poised to become Mrs. Bington, and another who is still, rather regrettably, attempting to figure her life out. That, he concluded with a definitive air, is simply not the introduction I desire for our esteemed family. I am 31 years old, I countered, my voice firm. My life is unequivocally figured out. It's figured out entirely wrong. He snapped, his control slipping. Savannah is propelling us into a family worth $620 million. Helena, you, on the other hand, are grading papers in a shoebox apartment. This is her singular, paramount moment, and I will not permit your mediocrity to tarnish it. Savannah, ever the calculated diplomat, touched his arm, assuming the role of peacemaker. We'll simply inform everyone that you had a pressing work conference, Dad. That sounds suitably important, doesn't it? Far better than admitting our daughter is perpetually confined to a Portland classroom. Mom, meanwhile, stared intently at her salad, as if the wilting lettuce possessed the magical ability to extricate her from the unfolding domestic drama. I slowly looked at each of them in turn. The man who had raised me, the sister who had consistently idealized him, and the mother who had, over time, perfected the art of emotional disappearance. So, just for absolute clarity, I reiterated, my voice dangerously calm, I am formally prohibited from meeting the Bingtons. Dad let out a short, derisive laugh. Helena, do you honestly believe I would permit you, with your rather pedestrian teacher shoes and your meager teacher's salary, to wander into a room brimming with billionaires? No, Helena. Absolutely not. Recognize your station. They collectively awaited my anticipated reaction, a display of tears, a dramatic scene, anything that would validate their stream of carefully calibrated insults. Instead, I meticulously folded my linen napkin and placed it with precise care beside my plate. Don't worry, I stated, my voice resonating with an unexpected steadiness. You will not have to explain my presence to anyone. And with that, I simply walked out. I deliberately did not glance back when my mother, her voice a faint, desperate whisper, finally called my name. By 11 p.m., I had returned to the solitary comfort of my apartment, clad in soft pajamas, desperately attempting to immerse myself in the stack of senior essays that still awaited my attention. Yet my father's biting words relentlessly echoed in my mind, replaying in an incessant, tormenting loop. Cheap, small, doesn't belong in the room. My phone, resting silently on the coffee table, suddenly buzzed to life. An unknown number. This is Adrian Bington. We need to talk. I stared at the message, my fingers hovering uncertainly above the screen. Bington. The name appeared utterly surreal, a stark anomaly in my personal inbox. With a hesitant tap, I initiated a reply. Hi, this is Helena. Almost instantly, my phone rang again. Miss Miller? The voice on the other end of the line was remarkably calm, measured, and carried a distinct trace of underlying curiosity. This is Adrian Bington, Executive Vice President at Bington Heritage Resorts. Hi, I responded slowly, trying to process the unexpected turn of events. I sincerely apologize for the late hour, he interjected smoothly. I've been trying to connect with you for some time. I hope I haven't caught you at an inconvenient moment. I'm currently grading essays, I admitted, a wry smile touching my lips. So, no more inconvenient than usual, I suppose. He let out a soft, amused chuckle. I'll be brief, Miss Miller. I have been closely observing the exceptional work of the Bright Path Learning Alliance for a considerable period, and your results, I must confess, are nothing short of impressive. My heart literally froze in my chest. Bright Path. The nonprofit organization Jenna and I had painstakingly established in my cramped living room just 3 years prior. The very initiative that had, without any fanfare, quietly expanded its reach through underfunded schools across Oregon and Washington. The one my own family had no inkling of its existence. You know about Bright Path? I stammered, utterly astonished. I am fully aware that you and Jenna Rowe have meticulously developed a program that has positively impacted 12,500 students, all on an incredibly lean total budget of $340,000, Adrian stated, his voice resonating with precise data points. I know that your average improvement rate in standardized assessments stands at an astonishing 91%, and I'm aware you have received 2 prestigious National Learning Review commendations. Furthermore, I also understand you maintain a full-time teaching position at Riverview High. Am I, in any way, misinformed? I slowly sank onto my sofa, the sudden weight of his knowledge almost overwhelming. No, I whispered, my voice barely audible. You are alarmingly informed. The Bington Education Trust is on the cusp of launching a monumental educational initiative, he continued, his tone devoid of any pretense. A 5-year commitment, with an $18 million investment. We harbor no interest in generic consulting firms or superficial, glossy pitches from individuals who have never actually experienced the realities of a classroom. We are specifically seeking someone who has authentically performed this critical work, particularly with severely limited resources. And you thought of me. I asked, still reeling from the unexpected turn of events. Yes, he replied with simple, understated conviction. You have painstakingly constructed something profoundly effective, entirely without the aid of splashy headlines or substantial funding. Imagine, Miss Miller, what you could achieve with genuine financial backing. Our proposals are due in precisely 60 hours. The select finalists will be invited to present their concepts at our annual summit, hosted at the prestigious Bington Crown Hotel. The date is March 22nd. On the main stage, before an audience of 520 distinguished attendees, including press, policymakers, and influential donors. That's the very same day as my sister's engagement party, I murmured, the irony not lost on me. I was not aware of that, he replied, a brief pause in his measured speech. Does that, in any way, alter your decision? My father's dismissive words flickered through my mind like a noxious phantom. You don't belong in that room. I took a slow, deliberate breath, steadying myself. No, I asserted, my voice now firm and resolute. Send me the requirements. Already done, he responded, a hint of satisfaction in his tone. Check your email. And Miss Miller, remember this. Never allow anyone to persuade you that teaching is anything less than profoundly powerful. When the call concluded, I immediately opened my laptop. My inbox chimed with a new message, Bright Path Partnership Proposal Guidelines. It contained 20 densely packed pages of intricate instructions, exacting data requirements, detailed financial projections, comprehensive impact plans, and ambitious scaling models. Everything Bright Path had meticulously and quietly constructed over the years was now explicitly invited onto a stage, meticulously designed for the very people my father revered and sought to impress. And for the first time in what felt like an eternity, a genuine, unburdened smile graced my lips. The subsequent 3 days dissolved into an relentless blur of strong coffee, intricate spreadsheets, and an unshakable determination that propelled me forward. Jenna and I established a rigorous video call schedule, her at her kitchen table in Lakewood Hills, me at mine in Portland, our faces illuminated by the glow of our screens through the long hours. You truly grasp that this has the potential to fundamentally transform everything, don't you? She asked during our very first midnight call, her voice laced with a mix of awe and trepidation. I know, I replied, a surge of adrenaline coursing through me. No pressure at all. Jenna meticulously managed the financial projections, meticulously crafting budgets for new software, additional staff, enhanced training modules, necessary hardware, and precise implementation strategies. My focus remained on the narrative, the compelling human dimension of the numbers, the deeply personal stories of the countless children who would otherwise remain invisible, entirely off anyone's radar, if we didn't intervene with our unwavering commitment. We painstakingly extracted critical metrics from our extensive database. Spokane Valley AP pass rates skyrocketing from a dismal 22% to an impressive 76%. Ashland Ridge students demonstrating an average reading level increase of 2 grade levels. In 2 struggling districts on Portland's east side, chronic absenteeism dramatically plummeting by 40% after the implementation of our highly engaging modules. Page 37 in their meticulous template is entirely dedicated to measurable impact. Jenna remarked at 2:13 a.m., her eyes visibly rimmed with exhaustion. This is the pivotal section where they will definitively assess our seriousness and credibility. We cannot afford to hold back, Helena. I wrote with a fervent intensity until my fingers cramped and ached, meticulously refining every sentence, every phrase. Our proposal needs to convey the impression that we are already a national entity, Jenna insisted, her voice raspy with fatigue, merely awaiting the necessary funding to align with our established reality. Because we asterisk our asterisk, I shot back, a fierce conviction in my tone. Amidst this whirlwind of intense preparation, I steadfastly continued my teaching duties. I stood in my classroom every day, guiding discussions, moderating lunchtime debates, and providing after-school tutoring, all the while feigning an air of normalcy, pretending that my mind wasn't perpetually saturated with intricate line items and persuasive slide decks. At the 58-hour mark, our combined efforts culminated in a formidable 48-page proposal, a document that felt as though it encapsulated every ounce of passion, dedication, and innovation we had painstakingly built over 3 arduous years. With a deep breath and a pounding heart, I finally hit send at 11:54 p.m. Exactly 6 minutes later, my phone vibrated. A new message, proposal received. Exceptional work. Adrian, P.S. Charles wants to meet you personally. March 22nd, 1:0 p.m. Pre-presentation briefing. Main hall. I slowly closed my laptop, a profound sense of vindication washing over me as I leaned back. My father had explicitly forbidden me from even being seen in the vicinity of the Bingtons. And now, the Bingtons themselves had not only sought me out, but had enthusiastically drawn me into their innermost, most influential circle. March 22nd dawned under a classic Portland spring sky, gray, drizzly, and imbued with an understated melancholy. I awoke even before my alarm, a restless energy coursing through me, and stood contemplating my closet, which contained precisely one black suit. It was a simple garment, slightly worn at the cuffs from years of use, but it was immaculately clean, neatly pressed, and most importantly, it was mine. I slipped it on, tied my hair back into a low, elegant bun, and regarded my reflection in the mirror. I didn't resemble the flawlessly coiffed women depicted in those glossy Bington corporate photographs. Instead, I saw a teacher, resolute and focused, embarking on a critical mission. My phone buzzed with a notification. Savannah's latest Instagram stories. A selfie of her at a high-end salon, another image of her draped in a silk robe, holding a delicate champagne flute, her caption proudly declaring, "Future Mrs. Bington." My mother sent a solitary text message, "Hope you're not too upset about everything. Your father just wants what's best." I left it unanswered. By noon, I found myself navigating the underground parking garage of the Bington Crown Hotel, surrounded by an impressive fleet of sleek, luxurious cars and their impeccably dressed drivers in black suits. I carefully parked my humble Corolla, took a deep, fortifying breath, and walked purposefully toward the elevators. The hotel lobby, in person, was even more breathtakingly opulent than the photographs suggested. Gleaming marble floors, towering crystal installations that sparkled like frozen waterfalls, and enormous arrangements of fresh, exotic flowers, every meticulous detail whispered the same unambiguous message. This is precisely where powerful individuals belong. I approached the elegant registration table. "Hello," I announced, my voice clear and steady. "I'm Helena Miller, representing the Bright Path Learning Alliance. I'm scheduled to present this afternoon." The woman behind the desk, her expression initially professional, scanned her list, then looked up at me with a discernible flicker of surprise. "Yes, of course, Miss Miller, you are one of our esteemed mainstage presenters." She extended a lanyard toward me. "Here you go, presenter, main stage, 2:10 p.m. As I clipped the lanyard around my neck, a familiar, somewhat grating laughter echoed across the vast lobby. I turned. Savannah. She stood across the expansive hall, resplendent in a pale gold dress, her arm elegantly linked with Nathaniel's, posing for photographs with a small cluster of impeccably dressed, sophisticated guests. My father, Franklin, stood nearby, resplendent in a brand-new, expensive suit, conversing animatedly with a small crowd, gesturing grandly like a man who firmly believed every room was his personal dominion. He spotted me. His smile, moments ago so expansive, abruptly vanished. "What is she doing here?" he demanded, his voice, though lowered, carrying distinctly across the marble expanse. The registration attendant, a picture of polite composure just moments before, stiffened perceptibly. "Sir, she was not invited," he snapped, his voice laced with an undeniable edge of contempt. "This particular event is exclusively for the Bington family and their invited guests. She is a nobody." Before the attendant could formulate a response, a familiar voice interjected from directly beside me. "Actually," Adrian said, stepping forward with an air of quiet authority, "she is our featured presenter." Dad slowly turned, the initial confusion on his face gradually morphing into incredulity. "Presenter." Adrian extended a hand to me first, a gesture of respect, then to my father. "Adrian Bington, Executive Vice President." Dad's posture immediately snapped into his most polished, professional mode. "Franklin Miller," he announced, grasping Adrian's hand with forced cordiality. "I'm Savannah's father. There must be some profound mistake. Helena is merely a teacher. She absolutely does not belong on that stage. Adrian's calm, unperturbed expression remained utterly unchanged. There is no mistake, Mr. Miller. A security staffer, observing the escalating tension, stepped discreetly closer. Everything satisfactory here, Mr. Bington. Yes, Adrian replied smoothly, a subtle undercurrent of command in his tone. Mr. Miller was just departing to take his seat. Miss Miller has an important briefing scheduled with Charles. He then looked directly, pointedly, at my father. Your daughter's exceptional work, Mr. Miller, is the very reason hundreds of thousands of students may soon be afforded a significantly brighter future, he stated calmly, his gaze unwavering. You should feel immensely proud. Dad's mouth opened, then snapped shut again, visibly caught between his seething outrage and his ingrained, desperate need to impress this powerful man. Savannah stared at me, her eyes wide with a mixture of disbelief and horror, as if she had just witnessed a specter. Helena, she stammered, disbelief dripping from every syllable. What on earth are you doing here? I'm presenting, I replied, simply stating the undeniable truth. You're what? She demanded, her voice rising in pitch. Before I could offer any further explanation, a clear, authoritative voice cut cleanly through the suddenly charged atmosphere. Miss Miller, we both turned. Charles Bington stood near the entrance to the grand hall, impeccably dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, his silver hair neatly combed back, his eyes sharp and assessing. Walk with me, please, he requested, his voice a quiet command. Adrian offered me the smallest, most reassuring nod. Go ahead, he murmured, a hint of encouragement in his tone. You've absolutely got this, Helena. Backstage, in a hushed corridor adorned with impressive portraits capturing past Bington events, Charles gestured toward a discreet, comfortable seating area. I've thoroughly reviewed your proposal not once, but 3 distinct times, he stated without any preamble, his gaze piercing. I have overseen the operations of numerous hotels, chaired countless foundations, and listened to more pitches than I could ever possibly count. Very, very few possess your unique blend of empirical data and genuine, heartfelt passion. Thank you, I managed, my voice softer and more uncertain than I had intended. However, you should be fully aware, he continued, his tone turning serious, the room out there is unforgiving, Miss Miller. It is densely packed with individuals who equate immense wealth with inherent wisdom. They will rigorously test you, interrupt your flow, and deliberately attempt to unnerve you. I teach teenagers, I replied, a faint, almost imperceptible smile touching my lips. I am quite accustomed to navigating challenging rooms. That response, to my surprise, actually elicited a genuine smile from him. Good answer, he acknowledged, a flicker of approval in his eyes. He studied me intently for a moment, his gaze probing. Your family, they don't know about Bright Path, do they? No, I admitted, my voice dropping slightly. Because, I hesitated, then made a conscious decision to choose honesty over superficial politeness. Because they only truly respect things they can immediately grasp and understand, I explained. And they simply do not comprehend the intrinsic value of pursuing something profoundly meaningful if it doesn't come accompanied by an exorbitant salary and a plethora of bragging rights. He nodded slowly, a knowing expression on his face, as if my words merely confirmed a long-held suspicion of his own. I built Bington Heritage Resorts from the ground up, starting with nothing more than a single, unassuming motel in Spokane Valley, he confided, a hint of distant memory in his voice. My father openly derided it as a joke. My brothers were convinced I'd eventually come crawling back to them, defeated. But then, one day, I simply didn't. He glanced at his watch, the movement precise and deliberate. 2 minutes, he announced. I only require one final answer from you. Okay, I responded, bracing myself. Do you genuinely desire this partnership because it will validate you to them? He nodded subtly toward the distant hum of the ballroom, indicating my family and their world. Or, he continued, his gaze returning to mine, unwavering, because it will truly serve the countless students you passionately work with. I met his gaze directly, without flinching. Because of the students, I asserted, my conviction absolute. The rest is merely extraneous noise. Good, he stated, a deep satisfaction in his tone. Because the noise, Miss Miller, never genuinely ceases. You simply become much, much better at utterly ignoring it. He rose from his seat. Ready? I wasn't entirely certain if anyone could ever be truly prepared for moments of such monumental consequence. Yes, I affirmed, a newfound strength solidifying within me. I am. We stepped back toward the door of the private seating area, and that was precisely when Dad intercepted me. He seized my arm in the hallway, his grip tight, his face contorted with barely suppressed fury. "What the hell do you imagine you're doing, Helena?" His voice was a dangerous, low hiss. "Are you deliberately attempting to humiliate me, to utterly sabotage Savannah's day?" I forcibly pulled my arm free from his grasp. "I am here on legitimate business," I declared, my voice cutting through his anger. "This has absolutely nothing to do with you, Dad. You are nothing more than a high school teacher." He spat, his contempt palpable. "What could you possibly have to articulate to the Bington Education Trust that they would ever care to hear?" "Something they actually desired to hear," I retorted, meeting his venomous glare head-on. "You need to depart immediately." He snapped, his face reddening with rage. "Now, before you bring further humiliation upon us in front of these incredibly important people." Savannah suddenly materialized behind him, her heels echoing a sharp staccato on the polished marble floor. Her perfect, carefully constructed facade now bore an undeniable crack. "Please, Helena," she pleaded, her voice tinged with desperation. "Don't do this. They are anticipating a certain elevated level. You up there discussing whatever it is you do, it will utterly confuse them." "We are finished here," I stated, stepping decisively past both of them, my resolve unwavering. "Is there a problem here?" Charles's voice, calm yet sharp as a surgeon's blade, sliced through the palpable tension. Dad flinched, visibly startled. "No," he stammered quickly, attempting to regain composure. "I was merely explaining that Helena doesn't really—" "She does," Charles interrupted, his tone chillingly cool, his eyes fixed on my father. "She is here precisely because she is one of the very few individuals in this entire building who genuinely comprehends what the future of education, fundamentally, needs to embody." He then cast a pointed glance between the three of us. "You two should proceed to your seats," he instructed my father and Savannah, his voice leaving no room for argument. "You'll undoubtedly wish to witness this." He waited patiently until they had, with visible reluctance, retreated toward the grand ballroom. Then, he turned back to me, his stern expression softening almost imperceptibly. "Let them harbor whatever thoughts they wish," he said quietly, a profound understanding in his eyes. "You simply continue to do your extraordinary work." The stage manager appeared then, a discreet figure emerging from the wings. "Miss Miller, you are on in precisely 30 seconds." I exhaled slowly, drawing strength from within, then walked purposefully to the steps and ascended to the stage. The stage lights, at first, were a blinding assault, momentarily disorienting me. I blinked into the brilliant glare, my heart hammering a furious rhythm against my ribs, so intensely I could feel its insistent thrum in my fingertips. Rows upon rows of faces slowly coalesced before me. Sharp-suited executives, benevolent philanthropists, keen-eyed reporters, influential politicians, and, seated prominently at table 4, my family. My mother, Linda, clutched her napkin, her knuckles white. Savannah, usually so composed, looked visibly pale beneath her meticulously applied makeup, her carefully constructed poise shattered. My father, Franklin, despite the clear shift in control, was still attempting to project an illusion of being in command of the entire situation. I stepped to the podium, gripping its sides, grounding myself. "Good afternoon," I began, my voice clear and resonating with an unexpected authority. "My name is Helena Miller. I am a public school teacher at Riverview High School in Portland, Oregon, and the proud co-founder of the Bright Path Learning Alliance." A low murmur rippled through the vast room, a wave of curiosity and surprise. At table 4, my family remained utterly frozen, their expressions a mixture of shock and disbelief. "3 years ago," I continued, my voice gaining momentum and conviction, "I sat in a classroom and witnessed truly brilliant students falter and fail, not because they lacked inherent ability or intelligence, but because the system itself was devoid of the necessary tools to truly meet them where they were, to nurture their unique potential. Tonight, I intend to vividly illustrate for all of you what profoundly transformative impact occurs when we dare to fundamentally alter that reality." I clicked the remote in my hand. The first slide materialized on the immense screen behind me. a powerful collage of photos depicting students in various classrooms, their heads intently bent over tablets, their faces illuminated with focused concentration. Bright Path, I explained, began its journey as a humble passion project, born in the cramped confines of a small apartment. There was no sophisticated marketing team, no corporate backing, no lavish seed money. It was simply two dedicated teachers, armed with an unwavering belief that access to quality education should never, ever be dictated by your zip code. Slide after slide, I systematically presented the irrefutable facts. 12,500 students reached, a staggering 91% measurable improvement in academic performance. I highlighted our impact in Spokane Valley, in Ashland Ridge, districts that everyone else had long since dismissed and written off as lost causes. In one particular school, I declared, my voice filled with a quiet triumph. Our meticulously designed program successfully elevated AP pass rates from a dismal 22% to an astonishing 76% in just a single academic year. In another, the average reading levels of students jumped an impressive 2.5 full grades. This wasn't because we somehow found smarter children, I clarified, emphasizing the crucial distinction, but because we provided them with innovative tools precisely engineered for how they authentically learn and engage. People throughout the vast hall leaned forward, captivated. Some began to pull out notebooks, diligently scribbling notes. This is what Bright Path managed to achieve with a mere $340,000 over 3 years, I stated, allowing the impact of the modest sum to settle. Now, I urge you to imagine what we could accomplish with genuine, substantial investment. With the $18 million, the Bington Education Trust is prepared to commit to this vital endeavor. The subsequent, final slides meticulously outlined our ambitious, detailed plan. 60,000 students reached in year 1, a projected 600,000 by year 5. Comprehensive training for dedicated teachers, robust support systems for engaged families, and vital safeguards implemented to prevent burnout among our passionate educators. I concluded my presentation with one final, deeply moving image. A heartfelt collage of handwritten notes from grateful students. I didn't think I was smart until this class. This is the first time school has ever made sense to me. Thank you for never giving up on us. I allowed a moment of profound silence to settle over the room, letting the emotional weight of those words sink in. Then I spoke again. We do not require yet another inspirational slogan, I asserted, my voice unwavering. We urgently need robust infrastructure. We do not need more individuals instructing teachers to accomplish more with less. We need people who are truly willing to invest so that teachers can achieve more with enough. I stepped back from the microphone, the last words lingering in the air. For 3 long seconds, the grand room was enveloped in an almost absolute silence. Then, as if a dam had broken, applause erupted, a thunderous wave of sound that vibrated through the hall. It was loud, sustained, and undeniably genuine. People began to rise to their feet, even some who had initially appeared skeptical, now swept up in the collective energy. My gaze instinctively drifted back to table 4. My mother was clapping, silent tears tracing paths down her cheeks, a complex mix of emotions visible on her face. Dad looked utterly shell-shocked, as if the very floor beneath him had been abruptly yanked away. Savannah, I found I couldn't read her expression at all, her face an unreadable mask of bewildered emotions. The applause had not yet fully subsided when another voice, clear and resonant, called out. "Miss Miller!" I turned. Nathaniel Bington stood at his table, every eye in the room now drawn inexorably toward him. "I have a question," he stated, his tone cool, controlled, and precise. "You mentioned you've been teaching at Riverview for 7 years and have been painstakingly building this program for 3. That information, I must point out, does not align with what I have been previously informed." The room, which had just moments ago been filled with jubilant applause, instantly quieted, a collective intake of breath. "What, precisely, have you been told?" I inquired, my voice holding steady. "My fiancé," he said, nodding deliberately in Savannah's direction, his words now imbued with a chilling detachment, "informed me that you were unemployed, that you had been dismissed from your position at your school, and that you were, in her words, unstable." Savannah emitted a choked, gasping sound, her face a mask of terror. "Can you please clarify that discrepancy, Miss Miller?" he asked, his gaze fixed on me. I looked at Savannah. Her eyes were wide with panic, her hands visibly trembling. "Yes," I affirmed, my voice unwavering. "I can." I turned back to the microphone, addressing the entire room. "I have never at any point been dismissed from any position," I stated clearly, my voice resonating with truth. "I have taught continuously and without interruption at Riverview High School for 7 years. During that exact period, I proudly co-founded Bright Path with Jenna. For the initial 2 years, neither of us drew a single salary. Every single dollar, every penny, was directly invested back into our students and their schools." I maintained my steady gaze, directing my words subtly toward Savannah and Nathaniel. "If my sister conveyed anything contrary to you, I can only surmise she harbored her own personal reasons for doing so. But those reasons," I concluded, my voice firm, "were most certainly not rooted in the truth." Nathaniel slowly inhaled, his voice, when he spoke again, suddenly like ice. "This morning," he began, his words cutting through the silence, "I received a comprehensive report from a private investigator. It unequivocally revealed that Savannah possesses nearly $950,000 in accumulated gambling and cryptocurrency debts. It demonstrated that the MBA she proudly claimed to have earned from Lakewood Hills University simply does not exist. It exposed that the marketing firm she so frequently boasted about was, in fact, dissolved 2 years ago. In short, it proved that she has consistently fabricated details about her work, her finances, and her overall stability since the very day we first met." The whispers that erupted then were almost as deafening as the previous applause had been, a tidal wave of shocked gasps and murmurs. Savannah abruptly stood, her chair scraping loudly behind her, a desperate, animalistic sound. "Nate, please," she begged, her voice raw. "Sit down," he said quietly, his gaze not even flicking in her direction. "This is a private family matter," my father boomed, also rising to his feet, attempting to regain some semblance of control. "It bears absolutely no relevance to this distinguished event, nor to Miss Miller's." "It bears everything to do with it," Charles Bington interrupted, rising from his own chair, his presence commanding the room. "Because, Mr. Miller, you deliberately attempted to prevent the daughter, who is doing profoundly meaningful work, from even entering this building, while simultaneously parading the one who is utterly drowning in a sea of deceptions." He then cast his gaze around the room, making eye contact with many of the stunned attendees. "This partnership," he declared, his voice resonating with conviction, "is fundamentally about values, about unwavering integrity, and about demonstrable impact, not about superficial photo opportunities or hollow prestige." Nathaniel turned back to me, his expression hardened, yet strangely calm. "I formally ended our engagement this morning," he stated quietly. "I only waited until tonight so that Savannah could hear it in the very same kind of public forum where she so meticulously performed her lies." Savannah let out a broken, guttural sob, a sound utterly devoid of the calculated, pretty tears she typically produced for photographs. She snatched her purse and fled the grand hall, the frantic clattering of her heels echoing across the polished marble floor, each step a desperate retreat. My father hesitated, visibly torn between the instinct to pursue his disgraced daughter and the desperate urge to remain and salvage whatever shred of his own pride might be left. Mom remained seated, her hands trembling uncontrollably in her lap, her face pale. I stood on the stage, feeling an unexpected, profound steadiness, understanding intrinsically that none of this unfolding drama was mine to bear or to carry. Charles then stepped onto the stage, a sleek leather portfolio held firmly in his hand. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his authoritative voice filling the vast hall, commanding everyone's attention, "I have dedicated decades of my life to the field of philanthropy. I have meticulously reviewed countless proposals and had the privilege of meeting innumerable individuals seeking crucial funding. Very, very few of them possess the extraordinary combination of integrity, visionary foresight, and deeply grounded experience that is so clearly embodied by the remarkable woman standing right beside me." He opened the folder with a deliberate motion. "This," he announced, holding up a document for all to see, is contract BTR 20312 BPL 117. It signifies a 5-year strategic partnership between the Bington Education Trust and the Bright Path Learning Alliance. The total funding commitment is $18 million. The year 1 disbursement will be $36 million. He turned to me, a warm, knowing smile gracing his lips. Miss Miller, will you sign? I looked down at the official document, at my name, printed with precise clarity below the signature line. Helena Miller, co-founder and chief innovation partner, Bright Path Learning Alliance. The girl who had been expressly forbidden from even attending the party, the teacher who supposedly didn't belong in such an esteemed room, was now being offered the keys to a kingdom. My hand was utterly steady as I grasped the elegant Mont Blanc pen. I signed my name. The grand hall erupted. A thunderous standing ovation, camera flashes popping like rapid-fire stars, people instinctively pulling out their phones despite the hotel's strict no recording policy, all desperate to capture the moment. Somewhere within that vast sea of admiring faces, my father was no longer the most prominent presence in the room. Nor was Savannah. The teacher was. After the monumental signing, the remainder of the evening blurred into a whirlwind of interviews, firm handshakes, and business cards discreetly pressed into my eager hands. Summit Wealth magazine expressed an avid interest in featuring my story. The Puget Sound Herald requested an exclusive quote. The American Business Chronicle extended an invitation for an op-ed piece. And the prestigious National Learning Review sought to conduct an in-depth case study of Bright Path success. Adrienne, ever the steadfast support, remained by my side for a significant portion of it, adeptly intercepting the most aggressive of the vultures. You're going to require substantial assistance in filtering through all of this, Helena, he murmured, a slight smirk playing on his lips. Welcome to your next full-time occupation. Amidst the bustling commotion, I discerned my mother hovering near the periphery of the crowd. She appeared remarkably diminished, a vulnerability I was unaccustomed to seeing, not physically, but emotionally, as if her long-held certainties had simply evaporated into thin air. I politely excused myself from a conversation and walked directly toward her. Helena, she began, her voice cracking with raw emotion. I genuinely don't know where to even begin. You don't have to begin anywhere in particular, Mom, I replied softly, offering a small, comforting smile. Just simply speak what is true. Tears, unbidden and copious, spilled freely down her cheeks. I have allowed your father's voice to be the loudest, most dominant one in our household for such an extended period that I utterly forgot I possessed one myself, she confessed, her voice choked with regret. I watched him systematically belittle you, Helena, and I remained shamefully silent. I repeatedly convinced myself that I was merely keeping the peace, but in reality, I was sacrificing you for it. I am so profoundly sorry, my dear. The apology I had silently yearned for my entire life, the one I had almost given up hope of ever receiving, now sat tangible and raw between us. It didn't magically mend every fractured piece, but it was authentic, and it was a beginning. I need time, Mom, I said quietly, the words carefully chosen. Time to truly comprehend where you fit in my life now. Time to painstakingly build something that isn't predicated on my pretending I'm okay when I'm clearly not. She nodded slowly, her understanding evident. Time is a fair exchange, she whispered, her gaze meeting mine. I'll be here, Helena, whenever you are ready. Savannah did not call. She did not send a text message. However, I did receive updates about her, initially from Mom, and then, a few months later, from Rhonda Jacobs at the Renew Horizons Center. Savannah has voluntarily checked herself into a comprehensive recovery program, Rhonda informed me during a phone conversation approximately 3 months later. She's diligently attending Gamblers Anonymous meetings. She's actually doing the incredibly difficult work. She's messy, she's undoubtedly scared, but she's consistently showing up, Helena. I found myself unsure how to process this unexpected information. A small part of me wanted to instinctively say, good. Another part wanted to retort, too late. But the vast majority of me simply felt an overwhelming, bone-deep weariness. 6 months following the momentous gala, an email arrived from Savannah. Helena, it began. My sponsor insists I need to make amends. I'm honestly not sure if this email qualifies, but I am genuinely trying. I have secured a job now. I'm an inventory associate at Hartwell Stores. I'm taking the bus, meticulously budgeting my money, and I'm actually, genuinely paying down my debts. I am not asking for a single cent from you. I know I have absolutely no right to ask for anything at all. But if you happen to know anyone who hires individuals like me, people with a documented history of making poor decisions and a viral humiliation clip, perhaps you could discreetly send them my way. If you can't, I completely understand. 300 days sober today, Savannah. I read the email 3 times, absorbing every word, before forwarding her information directly to Rhonda at Renew Horizons. My own reply was concise and unambiguous. Savannah, I am genuinely proud of you for seeking help. Renew Horizons will expect unwavering honesty and diligent hard work. No shortcuts, no manipulation. If you truly desire a different life, they will steadfastly walk with you. We both require space to heal and grow. Let's agree not to contact each other directly for at least 1 year. Helena. Her response arrived approximately 5 minutes later. Thank you. 2 small words, yet they held a weight and sincerity unlike anything she had ever communicated to me before. Meanwhile, Bright Path surged forward with unstoppable momentum. Within just 6 months of forging our pivotal partnership, we had successfully expanded our reach into school districts across Oregon, Washington, and Northern California. Evertech Learning Systems joined our mission as a crucial technology partner, providing invaluable assistance in adapting our innovative tools to cater to an even broader and more diverse range of learners. Emails began to flood in from teachers, their messages filled with renewed enthusiasm. I feel as though I've rediscovered the true purpose of my job. And for the first time in years, I'm genuinely excited to plan lessons. Jenna officially relocated into our spacious new office in the vibrant Harbor Light District, sharing a magnificent space with me. It boasted exposed brick walls, expansive windows offering a breathtaking view of Willow Bay, and notably, a grand conference table that was distinctly separate from my former dining table. We meticulously hired our staff, intentionally selecting only former teachers, not detached consultants who had merely spent 2 years in a classroom before dedicating a decade to lecturing about it. We saw it at our inaugural Bright Path Gala. I found myself standing at a podium in the very same grand hall where my life had, not so long ago, seemingly imploded, and then, against all odds, spectacularly rebuilt itself. I looked out at a vastly different kind of room now, less adorned with formal tuxedos, more vibrant with an palpable sense of passion and shared purpose. Every single dollar you generously contribute tonight, I announced, my voice resonating with conviction, will directly fund books, cutting-edge technology, dedicated mentors, and essential training, not extravagant corporate retreats or inflated executive bonuses. If your primary desire is for your money to purchase status, then this is not the event for you. However, if you yearn for your contribution to purchase genuine opportunity, then I extend a heartfelt welcome home. The resulting applause erupted from a place of deep, authentic conviction, a sound far more meaningful than any I had heard before. Afterward, Adrian gently pulled me aside. The board consistently reiterates the same sentiment, he confided, a hint of pride in his voice. They all agree that partnering with you, Helena, was unequivocally the finest investment the Bington Trust has ever made. It wasn't an investment solely in me, Adrian, I clarified, meeting his gaze. It was an investment in every single child no one else bothered to think about. He smiled, a genuine warmth in his eyes. You and Thomas would have genuinely connected, he remarked, a touch of sadness in his tone. Your brother? I inquired, a flicker of surprise. He nodded slowly. He was a third-grade teacher. He loved his students more than absolutely anything in the world. Our family, though, gave him absolute hell for it. They branded him a waste of a Bington mind. They said he was recklessly throwing his life away. Adrian paused, his voice barely a whisper, thick with regret. He ultimately believed them, Helena, and one day he simply couldn't bear the crushing weight of that belief any longer. The room seemed to subtly tilt beneath my feet, the gravity of his confessions settling in. I cannot bring him back, Helena, Adrian said, his voice regaining its strength, a renewed resolve. But I can ensure that we honor his memory by steadfastly backing every single teacher who utterly refuses to apologize for the profoundly vital work they do. He then handed me a document, its title clear: the Thomas Bington Memorial Scholarship. It outlined full tuition coverage for low-income students actively pursuing education degrees, funded entirely through Adrian's personal endowment. We stood in a companionable silence for a moment, two individuals who understood intimately what it meant to be told you were worth far less than you truly were. "To Thomas," I toasted, raising an imaginary glass. "To Thomas," he agreed, his eyes reflecting a shared sentiment. "And to every single teacher who, against all odds, continues their invaluable journey anyway." Years rolled forward with purposeful momentum. Bright Path steadily expanded its reach, touching the lives of 60,000 students, then triumphantly surpassing 100,000, and eventually impacting a staggering 200,000 young minds. We presented our findings to various federal committees, enduring intense grilling from officials who, quite frankly, had never once set foot inside a public school classroom. We answered their probing questions patiently, calmly, and meticulously, steadfastly refusing to dilute or compromise the unvarnished truth of our mission. Eventually, our persistent efforts bore fruit as significant federal funding arrived. A substantial 10-year, $600 million commitment specifically allocated to scale Bright Path, elevating it into a national educational model. Somewhere along this remarkable journey, I purchased a house, a modest, light-filled sanctuary nestled in a tranquil Portland neighborhood. It boasted a small, vibrant garden and a spare bedroom that I lovingly transformed into a dedicated reading room, a quiet haven for contemplation and learning. I adorned the walls with photographs of my beaming students, alongside framed, heartfelt letters from children who wrote messages like, "You believed in me when no one else did." I met Aaron Blake at an education conference, a fellow history teacher who possessed an innate understanding of why my ideal evening sometimes involved the quiet task of grading essays on the couch, surrounded by the comforting silence of my home. He didn't flinch or look askance when I shed tears of joy over a student who, against all odds, finally passed a challenging exam on their third attempt. He never once questioned when I intended to pursue something more than teaching. "You're not a CEO who merely happens to teach, Helena," he observed one evening, a profound insight in his voice. "You are fundamentally a teacher who happens to successfully run a national organization. There's a crucial difference." I believed him implicitly, because for me, the vibrant energy of the classroom never ceased to feel like the true, pulsating center of everything. TEDx Cascadia Bay extended an invitation for me to speak, a moment that felt both surreal and deeply significant. I stepped onto their illustrious stage, my gaze sweeping across a sea of 2,000 expectant faces. "My father once explicitly banned me from my own sister's engagement party," I began, my voice clear and resonant, because my teacher's salary, he felt, was an embarrassing stain on his reputation. A ripple of murmurs and gasps moved through the captivated crowd. "Today," I continued, allowing the dramatic contrast to settle, "I help manage a $120 million national education initiative. But the profound truth is, I was just as valuable, just as impactful, standing in my classroom earning $55,000 a year as I am standing here before you now." I then delved into a heartfelt discourse about how society tragically mismeasures worth, often by the wrong metrics. By income instead of intrinsic impact, by prestigious titles instead of meaningful contributions, by who occupies the head of the boardroom table instead of who diligently educates the very individuals seated around it. We have erroneously convinced ourselves that true value exclusively resides at the top, in positions of power and wealth, I asserted, my conviction unwavering, when, in reality, the very individuals who steadfastly hold everything together, our dedicated teachers, our compassionate social workers, our tireless nurses, our selfless caretakers, are often treated as if they are interchangeable, utterly disposable, or entirely optional. I displayed a poignant slide of my students, each holding signs proudly proclaiming their aspirations: future engineer, future artist, future therapist, future teacher. The people who once told me that teaching amounted to a tragic waste of my potential, I declared, my voice echoing with a quiet triumph, fundamentally missed the entire point. Teaching, I emphasized, my gaze sweeping across the audience, is * the potential. It is the intricate, foundational root system beneath the entire forest. Ignore it, and inevitably, everything else will eventually crumble. I concluded my impassioned address with a final, resonant message. Your inherent worth is not, and never will be, determined by the size of your paycheck, the often biased opinions of your parents, or the prestigious brand names stitched onto your clothing. It is, instead, profoundly determined by the number of lives you gently touch, the unwavering honesty you consistently practice, and the sheer courage it requires to remain steadfast when walking away would undoubtedly be far simpler. If no one has ever imparted that crucial truth to you before, I am telling you now. The ensuing standing ovation felt utterly overwhelming, a wave of profound appreciation washing over me. But the thousands of deeply personal messages that flooded in afterward, emails, social media comments, handwritten letters, meant infinitely more. I was going to quit teaching. I'm staying. One read. My family thinks I completely wasted my degree in social work. Your talk, Helena, helped me breathe again. Another confided, I'm choosing my own path, even if they don't truly understand. Somewhere I knew with absolute certainty my father was watching. And so was Savannah. Each on separate screens, living separate lives, each quietly processing their own intricate choices and their profound consequences. Thanksgiving at my house in Portland bore no resemblance whatsoever to the meticulously polished, rigidly structured dinners of my childhood. There were no pre-assigned seats, no unspoken hierarchy, no subtle, cutting digs artfully disguised as jokes. Jenna and her partner were the first to arrive, bringing a delicious, homemade pie. Adrian followed shortly after, bearing a fine bottle of wine and a fresh round of his characteristically sarcastic commentary about the latest antics of board members. 3 of my wonderful Riverview colleagues showed up, each with a comforting casserole dish in hand. 2 of my former students, Jordan and Maya, now college students, walked in, flopped onto my couch, and made themselves at home as if they still belonged there, which, in a very real sense, they absolutely did. Mom walked in last, carrying a bowl of her perfectly mashed potatoes and wearing an expression that conveyed a lingering disbelief that this was, in fact, her life now. Divorced, actively engaged in therapy, volunteering as a literacy tutor 3 days a week, and slowly, painstakingly, piecing together the woman she was outside of Franklin's suffocating shadow. We squeezed around my modest dining table, elbows bumping companionably, voices overlapping in a joyful cacophony. I raised my glass, a quiet toast. To chosen family, I declared, my voice warm with emotion. To the incredible people who saw our inherent worth long before anyone else ever did. To Helena, Adrian added, a knowing smirk on his face, who unequivocally proved what happens when you make the grave mistake of underestimating a teacher. Everyone at the table laughed, a genuine, hearty sound. Actually, Jordan interjected, his eyes shining with excitement, to Ms. Miller, because I received my full scholarship letter from MIT last week, and I wouldn't have even dared to apply without your unwavering encouragement. The room fell into a stunned, appreciative quiet. Jordan, I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. He cut me off with a heartfelt hug. You showed me that where I come from doesn't dictate where I'm destined to go, he said, his voice sincere, and that my family can be the one I painstakingly build as much as the one I'm born into. Later that night, after everyone had departed and the house was filled with the quiet echoes of gratitude and the lingering scent of delicious food, I stood at the sink, mindlessly washing dirty dishes. My thoughts drifted to the young girl who had once been banned from an engagement party, and then to the woman who now, against all odds, proudly hosted her own table, filled with love and genuine connection. As for my father, life, in its inexorable way, simply continued to unfold. After the gala video, the raw footage of him calling me cheap and vehemently demanding my removal somehow leaked and went viral. The board of North Shore Risk Management saw it. They were, to put it mildly, far from pleased to witness one of their senior managers verbally abusing his own daughter at a high-profile charity event that had instantly become the talk of the entire city. First, they demoted him. Then, after a second, equally damaging video surfaced months later, capturing him berating a junior employee in front of important clients, explicitly calling them worthless. They made the decisive choice to terminate his employment. Word of his downfall spread like wildfire through Portland's tightly knit corporate circles. He sent out application after application, desperate for a new position, but no reputable company wanted to associate their esteemed name with his toxic reputation. Mom informed me that he eventually relocated to a modest studio apartment in Everett, working night shifts stocking shelves at a local grocery store. One day, a letter arrived at the Bright Path office. It was penned on yellow legal paper, the handwriting tight and unfamiliar. Helena, asterisk it began, I don't know how to articulate this except plainly. I was wrong. I fundamentally measured worth by entirely the wrong metrics. Savannah, on the other hand, embarked on a truly arduous journey of rebuilding herself from rock bottom. Through my mother and through Rhonda at Renew Horizons, I received intermittent updates about her progress. 9 months sober, then a year, then 2. She transitioned from her role in inventory processing to become a lead floor supervisor at Hartwell Stores, a significant step up. She painstakingly paid off her immense debt, slowly, agonizingly, and with unwavering honesty. She earned an associate's degree in accounting from the community college in Maple Glen, graduating with distinct honors. She emailed Mom a photo of herself, dressed in a simple cap and gown. There were no filters, no borrowed jewelry, just a radiant woman holding a diploma she had genuinely earned through sheer hard work. She says you taught her that true value originates from what you painstakingly build yourself, Helena, Mom told me one day, her voice soft with a newfound understanding. Not from who you simply attach yourself to. I didn't respond directly to Savannah, but I did make an anonymous donation to Starting Over Smart, a financial literacy program she had co-founded at Renew Horizons specifically for individuals recovering from addiction. Because genuine change, I firmly believe, always deserves profound support, even if it unfolds far away from your own immediate world. 2 years after that initial, life-altering partnership, I found myself standing in the prestigious Bington Education Trust boardroom at Horizon Tower, the very floor where, once upon a time, individuals like my father used to feel immensely powerful. I clicked to the final slide of a new, ambitious proposal, a plan to scale Bright Path nationally. Phase 2, I announced, my voice confident and assured, requires $120 million over 5 years. We are now prepared to reach 600,000 students and conclusively prove that sustainable, teacher-led educational reform is not a fantasy, but an achievable reality. When I finished, there were no hostile questions, no probing criticisms, just a chorus of approving nods. Motion to approve, Charles stated, his voice ringing with conviction. Second came simultaneously from 3 different directions around the table. All in favor? Every hand in the room shot up. Then Charles cleared his throat, a subtle signal of something more to come. One more thing, ladies and gentlemen. I am planning to retire as CEO next year. The board requires fresh eyes, younger, more dynamic voices, individuals who are much closer to the actual, ground-level work. We are therefore nominating Helena Miller for a board seat. The room shifted, a ripple of surprised murmurs. She would be the youngest in our entire history, someone noted, a hint of awe in their voice. Exactly, Charles replied, his gaze unwavering. We need the very person who fundamentally transformed our understanding of education to be sitting with us, to be actively shaping our decisions, not merely presenting to us. The vote was swift and, to my profound astonishment, unanimous. The teacher who had once been explicitly banned from meeting the Bingtons now possessed a powerful, decisive voice in determining where their vast wealth would be strategically directed. After the meeting, as people began to file out, Charles paused beside me. You know what truly convinced me in the very beginning, Helena? He asked, a twinkle in his eye. The proposal? I guessed, a slight smile playing on my lips. No, he said, shaking his head gently. It was the way you quietly walked away from that disastrous dinner at Venenzo's. There was no desperate begging for approval, no frantic, unnecessary defending of yourself, just a quiet, unshakable understanding that your inherent worth was never, ever up for debate. Most people, he observed, a touch of sadness in his voice, never arrive at that profound realization. You, Helena, had already achieved it. He glanced out the floor-to-ceiling windows, taking in the panoramic view of the bustling city below. Your father believed that by attempting to hide you, he was protecting himself, Charles reflected. In the end, it only served to highlight who was truly worth betting on. Netflix eventually called the documentary about my journey The Teacher Who Wouldn't Stay Quiet. They meticulously followed me through classrooms, into boardrooms, during bright path training sessions, and through countless late-night grading marathons. They interviewed my students, my fellow teachers, Jenna, Adrian, and even my mother. They painted a picture of my life that was far grander and more impactful than anything I had ever dared to imagine. But my favorite scenes, the ones that resonated most deeply, were always the simplest. Children discovering, often for the first time, that they weren't stupid at all. Teachers rediscovering the profound passion and purpose that had initially drawn them to this vital work. In the final, poignant shot, they filmed me at Riverview High, erasing a whiteboard after class, the late afternoon light slanting gently across empty desks, casting long shadows. The voiceover they chose to use was something I had murmured almost offhandedly in an earlier interview. Sometimes, the most powerful revenge isn't about proving them wrong. It's about proving yourself undeniably right, and then, with that newfound strength, helping countless others do precisely the same. The rest, inevitably, fades into insignificance. So, if you're still here, still listening to the echoes of my voice, allow me to conclude with this final, crucial message. If you were ever told that your chosen profession isn't real work, that your salary diminishes your intrinsic value, or that your selfless decision to help others is nothing more than a tragic waste of your boundless potential, then understand this truth. They were unequivocally wrong. You are not small. You are not cheap. You are not less. You are, in fact, an entire universe of potential impact, a brilliant constellation of worth that they were simply too narrow-minded to fully perceive. If this story found you at precisely the right time, please hit the like button. Share it with someone you know who desperately needs to hear this message, and subscribe to Tinye Revenge if you desire more stories about the transformative power of choosing yourself over someone else's limiting expectations. And tonight, when you reflect upon your own life, whether you find yourself in a tiny apartment, a bustling classroom, or a job that receives no public applause or recognition, remember this undeniable truth. Your value is not negotiable. It never ever was, it is intrinsic and it is infinite.